Graham, good to see you again.
Hi, Joe.
I'll just start with numbers from last night. I mean, how did you come through? Everyone okay?
There's a couple of bumps and bruises, a couple of knocks that we're just assessing this morning. So the boys who played wouldn't have trained anyway, like fully, obviously. So we'll see how they are on Friday. The lads who were ill came in and did a separate session, so that at least they're out of their beds and up and moving. And but apart from I think 2 players from the game last night, everyone was out there this morning, and by Saturday should be ready to go again.
Matthew Pennington, you mentioned last night, had this ankle issue that picked up on Saturday. Is there a hope that he could be available for Wimbledon?
Yeah, there's hope. Yeah, there's definitely hope. It's just about the swelling coming down and then actually assessing if there's any further sort of injury after that, really. So he's in the best of hands. He's quite a hardy boy. You know, he doesn't pull out much anyway in training, what we've learned so far about him. So hopefully he'll be okay for Friday training. If he doesn't make Friday training, then there'll be no point in putting him in on Saturday.
And on the longer term absentees, starting with Lewis, how's he developing at the moment?
Lewis is training with us. He started training fully on Friday, I believe, last week. So he's trained Monday, Tuesday, and again today. So just been speaking to him there. Actually, he's feeling the sort of the rigours of the intensity, the training, because he's missed quite a lot of football over a good amount of time, even though he came back for most of pre-season. So it's just building up his confidence in his body as well. So, but he trained well today, to be fair. So hopefully he'll be up to speed. I still think it's probably another couple of weeks before he's match ready.
And Callum Kavanagh, I know you said it somewhat plateaued his coming back. How is he at the moment?
Yeah, it's still the same, really. It's just taking him back a step or two, just to give him the extra time to fully recover from, or his leg to fully get over the issue that he had, really. So we haven't seen him back out on the grass since I spoke to you last, unfortunately. So we're sort of waiting to see how that progresses, really.
And Andy Cook? Yeah,
Cookie's training every day now, so that's great. We just need to get him some sort of exposure to the 11v11 sort of stuff that's outside of a competitive game. The difficulty we have right now is we're playing every 3 days. Trying to get some sort of bounce game in between is impossible. So we're sort of manipulating small sessions after the main training session to try and give him the stimulus of what he would experience in a full game. So big distances, but it's maybe 4 or 5 players, but big distances, contact, all that sort of thing. So we're trying to work around the problem we have of the intense fixture schedule, and just give Cookie the best chance of when he returns for good, and not stop-start.
Yeah, I suspect your performance and results somewhat part answers this next question, but just more generally, how are you finding the squad in terms of standing up to the workload that's in front of them at the moment? And obviously now another midweek game on the way with progression through to the next round of the League Cup. That sort of realisation hit me on the bus on the way home. Another Tuesday game, but look, I'm all for it. I'm sure the players are as well. It's we want to win games. We want to be involved in competitions. So it's the price on the ticket. It's more games, but look, we're not going to moan about that. It's what our job is. So I think if we've had this intense period, if we'd used the same 11 players for every game, then I think we'd be hanging off, if I'm being realistic. But because only, I think Ibby is the only one that's played every game as an outfield player, out with Sam, I think we've managed to try and avoid any significant injuries with managing the squad as best we can. It's still educated guesses. It's not a surefire way of doing it, but we've got to try a different way to what we've done in the past to maintain the numbers, because even though if you get 4 or 5 injuries, you miss those players, but it just puts an extra emphasis on the players that are available, and we need to try and keep that load off
a player doing it every 3 days, consistently. I think if we can give them just a 1-game break, I think they're in a better condition going forward.
And how are you as a manager finding that dynamic? I know you said last season that it's something that's relatively new to you and you're learning to kind of cope with that. And go back to your answer after the Peterborough game, I think, by learning from what happened last season in the first half. How are you finding that as a manager?
It still doesn't sit comfortably with me. I lived my whole playing career off the back of perform, win, hold on to your shirt, and then that was 24 years of the same mentality, and then 10 years as a manager, the same mentality, and a part of it to inspire good performances and full commitment and everything. But I just, what happened to us last season, it wasn't just our players, because I obviously looked at the history of our players and how difficult it was, but I went wider. I looked at other clubs' game time and players that had played, how many teams had players who played 40 games plus and that, and it's quite low. It was quite shocked me actually, the relatively small amount of teams who had more than 6 players starting 40 games a season. It is a squad game, not just here, but it's all over the place. I think the dynamism of the games, I think the nature of the athletes now are different to what we were in our day. So we have to move with the times. We have to move with what the reality is, I should say, of modern football, of the modern footballer, and manage accordingly. The game's about those guys. It's not about what I was doing 20 years ago or whatever. And but it's selling that to the players mentally. When they're in good form, they want to play every game, and I understand that. But I think we've got a mature group who understand this still. I can still see the disappointment in people's eyes. I get it, and I don't think I'd prefer to change that either. I think they've still got to have that little sting that they want to play.
Yeah.
But I think there's a maturity and an understanding of why we're doing it, and as long as they keep respecting the teammates like they expect respect for them, then I think we'll be in a good place like we are now.
And that must come down to messaging as well, and how that's communicated. I go back to something that Tyreek said to us last night, that he felt that this team is the most of a team he's felt in, both on and off the field, in his whole career, because of the understanding that you have as a unit.
Yeah, well, that's good to hear from my perspective, because it's, I said to you last night about trusting my squad and trusting all the players in there, but if I'm just talking to you about it and picking the same 11, then I'm a liar, I'm a hypocrite, and I like to think I'm not either of those two things. So I do believe in them, and they need to feel that belief, they need to feel that trust, and I think they pay it back to us in their performances and how they react and how they behave when they're not in the starting 11 and someone else is. I think it's a big part of football. I spoke to them before the season started, and I gave them the data from last season, who started, how many people started, whatever. Everyone got a medal at the end of the season. Everyone got the rewards, and I think that's the most important thing for a player to understand now, if they can. And it's hard for me, because I'm asking them to do something that I didn't.
Yeah.
That's the thing, and hopefully they stay patient with me.
Yeah, I suspect a lot of that relies on squad composition, and naturally we're coming towards the end of the summer window now. We saw Clark go out on loan to Grimsby yesterday. On the outgoings front, I mean, I know you've made it clear to individuals about minutes available or lack of moving forward. In terms of those who maybe are on the verge of not getting much minutes this season, has there been any developments regarding any further outgoings?
No, the scenario is still the same. There's been no further developments from the last week when I spoke to you and said there'd been a couple of opportunities for a couple of players which they turned down. And so there's been no further step forward from those scenarios. Obviously, the immediacy of the window being right around the corner will, I would guess, focus people's minds and focus clubs' efforts, and we see what happens in the next few days. But the scenario from my side, it hasn't changed. So it's whether players want to go and play football. That's what it comes down to, really.
feel quite relaxed about this window in particular, going into the last few days?
I do, yeah, because I see what we have to work with right now, and I said it a couple of weeks ago. If we had the squad available to us 2 weeks ago for the rest of the 4 months, I'd be a content man and a happy manager. But I still believe we need one more player to really make sure. And listen, I don't think any club can withstand 6 or 7 injuries.
Yeah.
It's impossible to just carry on the flow. But if we miss 2 or 3, which we're always going to do through injury, suspension, things like that, illness, as we saw yesterday, we still have healthy numbers to be able to just keep going. But there is a danger of going too many players, and then you get disenchanted players who have no hope of playing. And I don't think it's good for them, and it's not good for a culture and an environment. So we'll see how the next few days progress. But I'm really confident in what we have in the building already.
Are you keeping that position close to your chest?
Yes, I am. Yeah, I am. I think it's it's because we might not bring anybody in, and then there's discussion over this, that, the other. I like us as a club that we don't go and say we're going to do something, and before we do it, we just get the work done. We tell everybody as soon as it's done. So everyone's in the picture. We don't want to play hide and seek with our supporters and people interested in us. But I think there's a way of doing business, and I think we're all on the same page as that as a club, and I think it's the right way to do it. And so, fingers crossed the next few days, we're an improved squad. We're where we want to be. But regardless of that, if we don't bring anyone in, we 100% improved the squad over the full course of the summer. Yeah,
and I suspect then there's the high possibility of this window ending without you having a lone player in the squad.
Yeah, potentially. I think look, that's not a purpose thing. I don't think we've gone. We can't sign this or that. We've spoke to clubs in the previous month or so about potential loan players. So that opportunity is still there for us. My ideal, I would think most people's ideals is having players that are committed to our club long term. But we've seen, and I've said this previous, we've seen the impact that loan players can have on a positive side coming into our squad. So we'll just keep that option open if we can.
Just finally from me, Wimbledon next for you, a fellow promoted team as well. Just on that point, what have you made to not just yourself, but Wimbledon, Doncaster, fellow promoted teams, and Port Vale could have picked up more points at this stage of the season as well. How they've acclimatised to the step up to League One?
I think they've probably come into the division the same as us, with like optimism, with a winning culture, winning feeling. I haven't looked at the other team's form in depth, to be honest. There's a general interest because obviously we competed against them last year, and I'll get on with all the managers, the other 3 managers. I think they all did fantastic jobs at their club to get promoted. And you get to know these guys over competing against them, and they've got winning mentalities. And I think you don't change from level to level and then forget about what you are. And I think they've got their identity, they've got their belief, and they've done good things over the previous 12, 15, 18 months, however long they've been there. So we know the challenge on Saturday. Johnny's done a fantastic job down there with Wimbledon, getting them into League One in the first place. And we know the 2 tough games we had against them last season. So I don't expect Saturday to be any different, but we will go into it and give it our best shot as we always do.
Thanks, Greg. Best of luck.
Okay, mate.
You talk about keeping the team fresh and resting players and bringing other players in. Presumably that's mentally as well as physically. Because if you're mentally fatigued, you can put yourself in danger of getting physically injured.
Yeah, you're right, but I don't think our players are mentally weak. It's a pure physical aspect from my perspective. When I look at it, I'm looking at players' data, their history, physical history. I'm not looking at their mentality. I think to be in this group, I think you have to be a strong character, a strong personality anyway. So I'm not looking at any player and thinking they mentally need a break. Not one of them.
just on a physical aspect. And you know what? I think the players that I've brought out could have played the game that I brought them out of, but 3-4 games down the line, would they have maintained that? I don't think so. So it's not waiting until they're hanging off and visibly tiring in front of us and struggling. It's trying to just keep that freshness with the group, and obviously the players who haven't played the previous game come into that equation. If they're ready to go in, it gives me a better choice to make with bringing the player out. But the mental side of it, I don't think that's an issue for me at this club, to be honest, with this group of players.
And one of the things that is noticeable mentally is, given the start you've had, there is still that whole, the next game is the one that matters. No one's getting carried away with the fact that you're still unbeaten.
No, I hope not. I think if anyone did, I think they'd be brought down to earth by their teammates. I don't think I have to step in on that perspective. I think the way we behave and the way we train and act has been set in over a period of time now, where players that come into it just feel it and sense it, and the message gets passed on by players already here. So I don't think that's, from my perspective, I don't think that's something that I concern myself too much about because of the players that we have in that squad right now. I think if anyone gets above their station or their ego gets out of hand, I think they'll be brought down before it gets to the end of the day, to be honest, and they're ready to work again. So that's how a proper team should work. The only time for patting yourself on the back is at the end of the season when you've achieved something, and so fingers crossed that might be the case.
So, Graham, obviously about having to work differently as a manager now in terms of rotating things, changing players, obviously through this spell. I mean, when you speak to other managers, do they talk to you about it? Because obviously, they must have noticed and thought, he's doing it different to what he used to do.
Well, I haven't spoke to. Well, I did with Mark last night actually after the game. I just, because obviously we'd made 5 changes on Saturday, we made 5 changes last night, and just speaking to him about him making changes to his team as well, and it's the same principles really. So it's not something I've discussed at length with lots of managers in the past, and I'm not talking about my scenario, but it's good to speak to other quality managers, which Mark is, and vastly experienced, about their scenarios and their experiences. But it's just something that I've seen other managers doing it in the past, and listen, everyone has their beliefs and their understandings, and maybe it's took me too long to come to terms with the modern game or something, I don't know, but I always just wanted to treat players how I wanted to be treated, that I could keep that shirt, because my desire to play the week after was always strong, and always wanted to be in control of that scenario as a player. So I always wanted my players to have that, but look, the game has moved on, the game has changed, so I've had to go with the flow sort of thing and understand what the game is now. But speaking to Mark last night, he has the same beliefs in that as well.
So obviously you're not comfortable with it at times, but is it easy to have that conversation with players now because you've got sort of the experience of the last half a season?
Yeah, and I'm not, I've not communicated this to the players after the event. We did it before we kicked off the season, and I did.
They knew what was coming.
Yeah, our knowledge, our understanding of what happened to us this time last season, how we managed that period of 13 games in 40 days, after the new year, and the benefits of, doing it that way. And we believed that this was the way forward for us as a group. So the communication was there before, like we did before that run last season. I sat the whole squad down and said, this is how we're going to do it for the next 7 weeks. And I felt the players bought into that and understood. They can still come and talk to me now.
So not after names, were there any dissenting voices, or was it pretty much unanimous in the room? Everyone said, we may not be happy with it, but we can see.
Last season, you mean?
Yeah, when you first started.
No, I think no, not during that period. No, I think because the games were that thick and fast, and they saw the opportunity at the end of the season, what we could achieve together. I think I've had good individual chats with a couple of players this season,
but I've got no problem with dialogue and people knocking on the door and asking a question. It doesn't have to be a row, it doesn't have to be dissentful or anything like that. It's just come in and speak man to man. That's how I see it, you know, and I want to talk to my players. I want to listen to them. I want them to have a voice and to have an opinion. If they've got something to say, I'd rather them say it to me in my office, you know, and I can give them answers rather than talk behind the scenes or in the showers and stuff like that. I don't think that's a healthy scenario. So I want players to feel comfortable enough to come to me, to come to Skip, Tree, whoever it is, Doyler, so we can help them, you know, be better and understand the bigger picture. It's but I do understand the difference that you can't expect a player to think like a manager either. You know, I don't want them to think like me. I want them to have that desire to put themselves out there and to want to play every week. I don't want them just to be, you know, whatever comes my way. I still want them all to fight to be in that team on the Saturday, because I think it brings the level up to what we need to win games. But I just think having an empathy from my side for them and them for the scenario we're in, I think it provides a healthy sort of relationship, I would say.
Obviously, talking to Josh earlier, and we mentioned about the goal he scored against Notts County. Obviously, you were at that game with Sky. I mean, was he at the time? Was he very much on your radar, or was it, you know, in that time, or was he sort of on the list and you suddenly saw that goal and you thought, hang on a minute, he's very, very good, this lad?
No, he'd been on the radar for a few months, to be fair. You know, that just I was actually. I'll be honest, when he scored it, I was a bit disappointed. To be honest, you know, I was like, oh no, live on Sky, big game, he scored the winning goal.
Suddenly get a bit more difficult.
Yeah, I wanted him to go under the radar. You know, that I did. I generally did, because I knew we wanted him. I knew we were would have an opportunity in the summer because he was out of contract and everything. So. No, the goal was the opposite for me. It was actually a sigh of disappointment that he'd sort of highlighted what he is as a player. So, but listen, I don't think it was a secret of his quality last season. I don't think we were the only club interested in his signature. So, yeah, it was good to see him live though, you know, firsthand. And see his quality playing on the opposite side of the pitch. You know, I think he's a versatile player, as you saw last night.
On the left that day, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was on the left. Yeah. He sort of to and fro from side to side because he was up against an opponent they wanted to nullify, but ended up being the other way really. I think it was the opponent trying to stop him. So, but you saw last night he came on and played one up, you know, in the front three. So he's just a good player, brilliant professional, great lad. Worked his watches off this morning in training. So he's a top guy.
As you say, playing further forward, it does. You know, he's another one of those, a great option, isn't he? It's not like he's rigid in one position.
No, it's important to us. You know, I've said it many times, and I know players have their career paths and they have their ideal position to fulfil their ambitions and dreams. I get that, but there's another side where you have to be unselfish and you have to maybe play in a different position from time to time just to make sure that we keep the strength of the performance as high as it can. So I believe we have players that are willing to do that, you know, and play anywhere that's needed for the group. But I also understand I don't want to, you know, mess players about by consistently playing them all over the pitch. I don't think that helps their development either. So especially with young players as well. And Josh is obviously a young player with a really bright future.
Last question, I was going to say about obviously the Wimbledon games you alluded to earlier. Last year there were literally nothing between the two sides. Were there? Is it a slightly different game because you're playing a team that, I know there's been changes on both sides, but you're very familiar with, they're very familiar with you.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, every game so far I've been playing against an opponent that, you know, a lot of times this club hasn't played for a long time.
Yeah.
And suddenly you've got one who, you know, you very much were in the faces of last season.
Yeah, but I think you know, if you look at the teams that we've played against, they've played how they wanted to play. You know, when we analysed them, that was the game that we got. You know, and I think the same will be with Wimbledon. Certainly, because, you know, we've gone into this season confident in what we do because it was successful, and Johnny will be the same with his team. Go, well, we were successful this way. Why are we going to change? And so we'll both know what's coming against each other. But I presume the other teams that we played this season knew what we were going to be about as well, even if they hadn't played us. You know, we haven't changed that much. We're still the team that we we were last season. Obviously, different players, but we're still playing in the same fashion. So I think that familiarity between the clubs, as in and the managers, knowing what to expect, is in the sort of the run up to the game. But listen, each game can take on a story itself with different things that happen during it. So we have to be prepared to stand up and understand whatever challenge comes our way, we have to overcome it. And it will be a challenge without a shadow of a doubt. But they know what they're coming into, because it was similar to this time last season. I think we played them quite early on as well. So we just have to be at our best of what we can produce, like we have done in every other game, or attempt to do in every other game. I don't see why our sort of ambitions should change.
Just sort of thinking traditionally, Graham, players will come to Bradford, they'll say, it's a massive club, and it obviously is a massive club, but there's a lot of other things that are luring players to the club now. Obviously, you've got a first-class environment here, the club's on an upward trajectory. There's a lot of, just as important.
Yeah, I think for me, you can look into how the team plays, the manager, your teammates, this, that, but it's a feel.
Yeah.
I think, I think if people have seen, I think certainly from the last day of last season, people outside of Bradford, around the whole country, were talking about Bradford and the scenes and everything. And I think maybe then, like, half an eye on us going into this season, and then we've seen the results that we've had against top clubs, in our division and the division above. I think it's a feel. I think other players, other people can sense, what's going on a little bit. So that's good for us. But I think we're a good package for a player. It's not perfect for everybody. It's not, but we're transparent when we talk to people. This is what it is. This is what you have to buy into. This is, we're not going to change for individuals. It's about the group. And I think it's a place that, I don't know, not for everybody, but I think when you join, I think it's a good place to be. And I think people see it that are around the periphery, want to be in it. That's what I feel. I think there's players that want to be in that group. I think there's supporters that keep joining on to the attendances, and there's good things happening. I think that's it's a good feeling to be a part of it. That's what I would say, and I said this last night, I think, to Jamie, that just coming in every day is a joy for me. I love just being in the middle of it. If I was on the outside of it, I'd want to get in. So I feel extremely fortunate every day coming in with good people, and I think the players and the staff feel like that as well. So, but we have to work at that to make sure we maintain that by keeping each other in check and how we behave.
Yeah, you spoke last night about players knowing their roles without the ball. You've done all this hell of a lot of technical work on the training ground. Seems to be a lot of good football brains in your squad. And do you see any future coaches, managers, and there seem a real set of inquisitive lads that want to learn and they want the technical nuances and all that sort of thing?
It's weird. It's weird. I had this conversation with a couple of players last year about when you're in this seat in 6 years' time, 10 years' time, something, because I've got no doubts that a couple of them will be, if they want to. that's the question, if they want to. But I think you can sort of sense that from players. Doesn't mean they'll be successful, unsuccessful, whatever. But you can sense that they've got an inquisitive mind and they want to know things, and they want to ask questions, and they want to understand things. And I think as a manager, you're constantly in that sort of mode, really. You're constantly trying to understand things, make yourself better, have new ideas. And I think when you see players of the same ilk, I think you can sense that they're going to go along that path. But like I said before, I want them to think like footballers, like players. They've got to have that inquisitive mind. I had that at certain stages in my career, but I never lost the heart of a player. As I always wanted to play every single week first and foremost, and I want my players to think like that.
I was just sort of thinking, obviously, with it going further in the cup, and you've got the trophy, sharpens it into focus. This about thinking ahead, and which players might be playing in this game, and because you're going to get this for a few months, aren't you? Really, up the autumn, and then you got the FA Cup.
But I'm not. I can't think like that. I didn't know a few lads were going to be ill last night. So I could plan ahead like that, and I know for a fact, guaranteed, it won't look like that when you look back on it. So now we just go from game to game. We look at the what's happened in the previous game, and then the previous 3 or 4 games. We look at a player, and we look at a player ready to come in, and we try to just go for that game only if we can. Yeah, maybe 2 games in conjunction, but never more than that, because things change, and then if you lose your focus because of a plan changing, you know what I mean. So we keep our plans relatively open, so we can adapt to whatever the challenge is.